Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Collective Spotlight with me, your host, Danny Morales. Um, I am super excited for this week's guest. I'm always excited when I get to do a DC writer, but my guest today is Robert Venditti. You might know him from his works with Green Lantern. He's done tons of things with DC. What we have him in the building for today, as you can see, is World of Krypton #1, which the collective went all in on. We've got all the covers, including incentives. And without further ado, I will bring here writer extraordinaire, Mr. Robert Venditti. How are you doing today, man?
Pretty good, man. How you doing, Danny? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for giving us some time. I know you're on the West Coast and everything, but thank you so much for coming on, man.
I'm actually in Atlanta.
In Atlanta?
Yeah.
Oh, that means we got to get Rob down to the store sometime. Then we'll fly.
Where
this
are you
man
guys
out.
based out of?
We're in Orlando.
Oh, okay. I went to school at UCF for my graduate degree. Yeah.
Didn't you? Now we're getting super off track. We'll talk about comic books soon enough.
Sure.
Didn't you used to also teach in the area? I think creative writing, maybe, or something like that.
I did teach in the area. I worked at I'm from South Florida originally, Pembroke Pines, if you know that area.
Yes, I know very well.
West of Hollywood, but I went to grad school at UCF, and while I was there, I worked at the Borders Books and Music in Winter Park, which obviously is gone now because all the Borders are gone. But I worked there for, I don't know, a few years before I moved up to Atlanta at around 2000. So
nice. I like how I got your like geographical origin story, and it's actually really cool because I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida, so maybe about 60 minutes to 90 minutes north of Pembroke. I play baseball tournaments in Pembroke Pines all the time, and then I live in Winter Park now, so we've been everywhere.
Yeah. I had a bunch of buddies up in Boca. I got some friends in West Palm. I didn't make it up that way too much. You know what I'm saying? I had that Broward County money, not that West Palm money. You know what I'm
saying? Hey, most of us, it's funny because most of us in Palm Beach County were driving down to Broward County to have fun. So.
Yeah.
But Rob, so you are a writer extraordinaire. You've done a lot of cool stuff with Green Lantern. You've done a lot of stuff with DC. But today you're on World of Krypton #1. Yep. Talk to the people a little bit about what this book of World of Krypton is, because it's a little bit a retelling of the original while you doing your own spin on it, correct?
Sure, yeah. It's like a lot of things I've done at DC. You know, I'm not a super continuity heavy writer. I don't have like a tremendous background reading comics. You know, growing up, I came to them pretty late in life. So any project I work on, whether it's Hawkman, Green Lantern, pretty much anything except Superman 78, which I knew very well from the movies when I was a kid. I have to kind of go do research and see things. And so I try to stay true to what's happened before, but also not get so mired in continuity that if you haven't read all the things that have happened before, you can't enjoy the new story. You know, the new entry point, that person you always hear about every comic book is somebody's first comic book. I was that person. You know, I started reading comics in my mid-20s. So I try to be very conscious of that. And so I did go back and read the prior World of Krypton material, and I do pull on some things there. But a lot of it is really, us as a team trying to create what our version of Krypton is. And a lot of that comes down to Mike and Nick, the art team, and them really envisioning how these cities would operate, what the clothing would look like, public spaces, outdoor spaces, things like that. And then we throw in something like a thought beast that people know from continuity.
Well, and a lot of people and again, Krypton is in most continuities, is gone by the time they get to meet Superman. But another big thing that I feel like most people like to talk about, and it's kind of displayed on your variant cover, is the architecture on Krypton. A lot of people love to see how futuristic buildings are and everything like that. Was that something you guys spent a little bit of time on while doing this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely called those things out in the script, but a lot of it is Mike's designs. The idea that Kryptonopolis is sort of a hovering city, and in the next issue, we'll get into some more interior spaces and see like what the court judicial place looks like and things like that. And these are all designs Mike are doing, and it's a lot easier for me as a writer. For example, in the issue he's drawing now, it takes place in a Kryptonian museum of history, and so as the characters are walking through history, you can kind of see a timeline of Krypton's development the way that we would in a museum that we went to. And so it's very easy for me to describe that in the script and the overall idea, what we're going for. But Mike is really the one who comes in and establishes what those visuals are and to get that stuff on the page. And, Mike is such a talented artist, and I've been a fan of his. Going back to what I was saying earlier, I didn't start reading comic books until my mid-20s. One of the very first comics I read was Powers, because it was a new series at that time, and I was just looking for number ones, And I always enjoy art that has, a more stylistic bent to it, And so, he's someone that I've been a fan of for a long time, and he's really getting to do a lot of design stuff here and really flex some muscles and do some interesting things. And it only gets more intricate as we go through the series.
And you since we're talking about Mike and the art, like you said, it's very stylized, it's beautiful, it's crisp and clean, but it also has that kind of synergy where you can't tell if it's like kind of all ages art or whatnot. Did you guys kind of do that on purpose, like where a young Superman fan can read this as well, or is this meant a little bit more for the teenage, mature audience?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly done different kinds of stories that have, a more grown-up sensibility to it, I guess, But with DC, I tend to write most of my stuff to where, pretty much anybody could read it. I don't, I try not to stray too much into, graphic violence or things that are too adult. And so this story definitely fits in line with that. And that's Mike's style, and so I think he's a great fit for the story that we're trying to tell. And, there's just little moments that you land, like the first time you see Kara and she's a little infant baby or whatever, like the way he renders that, it's like the cutest baby you've ever seen. And so of course we're playing a bit on the expectations of the audience knowing, who Supergirl is. And, it's interesting because the Superman continuity, and I would say Batman and maybe Spider-Man, are the three characters in all of comics that everybody already knows their origin story and who they are and where the powers come from. Like anywhere on Earth you can go and the people will know those things. It's just ubiquitous at this point in our culture. And so that's an asset when you're working on a story like World of Krypton, because most people already know who Jor-El is and who Kara is and all these kinds of things, because it's just such a part of our pop culture consciousness. And so, it's fun to be able to give them little things like infant Kara and, just give people that moment where they see Kara as a baby, which maybe they haven't seen before,
So, and you mentioned, because you're also writing, Rob, the Superman 78, which I want to say is maybe on the 4th issue right now, my 3rd or 4th issue, I think.
4 issues out so far, yeah.
4 issues out. So the last person that has been able to that was given an opportunity to write 2 Superman stories at the same time, or have 2 Superman stories out at the same time, was Brian Michael Bendis. So and that's obviously a big taking on. Superman's one of the marquee characters. Everybody knows him, as you mentioned them. How do you approach getting a chance to write, that world and those characters kind of twice in 1 year?
Yeah, I mean, Superman, it's interesting. I was almost working on 3 different ones at the same time, because I was already writing Superman 78, I think, when I was still finishing up Man of Tomorrow.
Oh.
And I was talking about a 3rd Superman story at the same time that all that was going on. And I think I turned in a pitch for World of Krypton. It was near the end of 2019. 2020 just was a crazy year. And so a lot of things, kind of were affected and changes were made and things like that. And so, publishing shut down there for a little bit, printing plant shut down. So it just took a little while, I think, to get everything off the ground. But the Superman mythology has always been my favorite mythology, even going back to the Christopher Reeve films from when I was a kid, which were the very first experiences that I had with any sort of comic book content in any way. It was those films. In a lot of ways, people will say that John Byrne is their Superman or Dan Jurgens is their Superman. Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner, that's my Superman, right? So it wasn't hard. It's interesting because I'm writing Jor-El at the same time in two different stories, but they really are two different characters. You know, the 78 film universe version of Jor-El is so much different than what the comic book version of Jor-El has come to be. And obviously they started in the same place, but the comic book version of Jor-El has had so many stories told about him, and there's so much continuity behind the character that's really a completely different thing than what Marlon Brando did in the films.
Yes.
So it wasn't difficult to write them both at the same time because I really did treat them as two separate characters, you know?
So before I get back to World of Krypton, just because I can tell that you're obviously a big fan of Superman and Superman 78, and you mentioned Richard Donner and those guys. So what was it like when you were told that you were writing Superman 78? Or was this something you pitched to them after the Batman 89 news?
Yeah, no, in some ways it's a dream project, but in other ways it's not, because it's not a project I ever dreamed would actually happen, because if there was going to be comics set in that film universe, obviously it would have happened by now, you know, so it's never anything I even considered. But sort of the story that I'm telling you about my background in comics and the films, things like that, that's all very well known by editorial. You know, I've talked to them all about that stuff. It's kind of a joke whenever they ask me, do you want to write Hawkman? I'll always be like, I don't know anything about him, but I'll go research it, you know. But the one thing I always know about is Superman 78 universe, you know. So when they decided they were going to do a Batman 89 and Superman 78, they reached out to me and asked me if I would like to pitch for it. And, you know, I immediately knew what my story would be. You know, it just kind of grew out from there, you know, but to be able to work on it is just, it's tremendous, you know, and Will Fredo is just as passionate about those films as I am. You know, they had just as much of a mark on him when he was younger as they had on me. And so for us to be able to tell stories and a continuation of that, you know, with the Gene Hackman version of Lex Luthor and Margot Kidder and, you know, Christopher Reeve and all these things. And, you know, the response that we've gotten has been, you know, so positive. And, you know, there were moments when we would be making the comic and we would say, you know, this is the moment that if we were watching a movie, you would hear the score, you know, and people tell us, when I saw that scene, you know, that's when I started to hear the score. And so just responses like that are really, really great to hear. And we're having a ton of fun with it. So
that's awesome to hear, especially because, like, I mean, I'll admit, you know, I'm only 30, born in early 90. That those movies were making their way to DVD by then. But like, sure. I talk to people all the time now, and with what we see in movie theaters from DC and Marvel and Independence and Mark Millar on Netflix, Superman and George and Christopher Reeves kind of paved the way for what we have now, because we used to get one superhero movie a year, and now we're getting like 6.
Yeah, I do believe that the original Superman film from 1978 is the precursor of all these things. Like I can't necessarily see a line of correlation from the Batman TV show to the stuff we see in theaters now, but I can absolutely see a correlation from Superman 78 to Batman 89 to the X-Men to Spider-Man, you know, and on from there. Like, I don't think that if Donner hadn't made the film the way he made it, and if Christopher Reeve wasn't able to truly capture, you know, when you watch those films, it's believable because of his acting talent that people wouldn't know that Clark Kent was Superman. You know, like, he really transforms and his shoulders drop and he swings his arms and he's, you know, he's pushing his glasses up his nose and you really buy into it, you know. And I don't think without their abilities as artists, I don't know that people would have made the leap as soon as they did, that you can put these comic book movies on the screen and make them feel authentic and have something to say about, you know, the world in just the way that any movie does. And so, you know, that's my take on it. Obviously that's up for debate, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, it's up for debate, but I do think a lot of people agree that in some way, shape, or form, that 78 Superman paved the way for what we've had now.
Yeah, I would
actually, Joe just asked a question. Joe is always watching with us, and that's why we do this live. He said,
"Hit me, Joe. What do you got, buddy?"
He said, "What's the process like getting a sign-off on designs for the 78 series?"
I don't know. All that stuff's done internally. You know, I don't. I honestly don't know. I mean, I just wrote the stories, and and Wilfredo drew them, and all that stuff I would imagine is already worked out on their end. That's kind of the inside baseball stuff that when you're doing work for hire, you don't really see. If it was creator-owned comics or something, or I had licensed something directly, I would probably see that process. But there's I don't know, entire, I would say offices, but they're all working at home now probably. But there's entire groups of people who deal with just those sorts of things. So I really can't say. Yeah.
So to piggyback on kind of Joe talking about 78, how much creative freedom, like, and you don't have to give us the whole, but how much creative freedom do you get on that? Because obviously it's a property that exists already. And then you're kind of writing what happened, what follows. How much creative freedom did they end up giving you in that?
It was like anything else I wrote for DC. I worked with my editor, Andrew Marino, who's a fantastic editor. I've worked with him on tons of projects, How to Join the Green Lantern Corps, Hawkman, Freedom Fighters. I've really done a lot of comics with him. The Superman Man of Tomorrow series that I did. And so really, it was like any other editorial process where I turned in scripts and he gave notes on how to make, improve the story and things like that. But there wasn't any sort of constraints put on me beyond just knowing that we're working within the 78 universe version of these characters. It was freeing in a sense that this is outside the main continuity of the DC universe. So the World of Krypton is the same way. I mean, it's part of the same continuity, but it's not, taking place at the same moment that all the other books are taking place.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean? So there wasn't the sort of, when you're writing Green Lantern or Hawkman or whatever, there'll be things that are happening in a line-wide sense that they come to you and say, well, you can't use this character because the character's over there, or we want you to use this character or something along those lines. This really wasn't like that at all. When Andrew asked me about doing the series, he said he wanted Brainiac to be the villain because there hadn't been a film version of Brainiac anywhere yet. And I was very into that because I'd never really had a chance to write Brainiac, and that's one of the heavy hitters. And so immediately my ideas came to mind, and it was very freeing because we're able to do things like use sort of the green skinned purple jumpsuited version of Brainiac, but also use the robot skeleton version of Brainiac and create a continuity where there's a reason for both those things to exist. And it's the alien version is the one controlling the robots, which are his drones, and so you can really kind of tap into a lot of things, or using Candor as an example, which I don't think exists in the main continuity anymore. So it's very freeing in the sense that everything is on the table and you're just working with the personalities and events that have already been established for me in the first two movies. And in my head canon, Superman 78, the comic book series, is set after Superman 2. So.
Okay. So it literally sounds like you're kind of a kid in his sandbox when you're getting to write some of this stuff right now. I mean, I can tell the passion. I talk to a lot of creator-owned people. It's usually an independent show, and I'm seeing all that passion that I see from people that have done their creator-owned stuff with you on this stuff. And like I said, it's like you're a kid in a sandbox making your own world right now, a world that not from scratch, but a world that you grew up loving.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's something I never thought I'd be able to do, and to be able to have those moments, there's so much fun and joy about the Superman 78 films. And, I think there's a tendency sometimes for people to think of Superman as a Boy Scout or he's corny or any of those kinds of things, but I just never viewed the character that way. And I still don't, I see him as incredibly endearing and honorable. And he's just somebody who does the right thing because it's the right thing to do, without fail, when he could do the wrong thing every single time and nobody would be able to do anything about it, And I just find that very appealing as a character to write. I don't find it, corny or hokey at all. I've always been and continue to be much more a Superman guy than a Batman guy,
And I think as much as the more louder people in the room tend to be Batman guys, I think it's pretty split across. I mean, even when you include Spider-Man in there, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, everybody will argue their guy will take the other two in a fight anytime.
I mean, let's be honest, it's just absurd. You know what I'm saying? Like, the only reason why Superman doesn't kill everybody is because Superman doesn't want to kill everybody. I
Exactly.
mean, there's no
I
other
love it. I could
logic
tell I'm
that
talking
makes
to
any sense.
a real comic geek right now
Yeah.
about this stuff.
I mean, really, I just approach it from a story perspective. Like, I guess, and I don't know a ton about Marvel at all, but I guess the only Marvel character that, and I guess I'm only going with mainline characters. I mean, I'm sure there's, I don't know, a ton of characters that have some crazy power or whatever, but like Hulk would be the only one, I guess, that I could think of that Superman couldn't just outright kill, because I think that's Hulk's thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
he's
or at least he was immortal the last 2 years. That's for sure.
yeah.
So your Superman 78 is kind of a nice thing for some people who are nostalgic for the Superman 78. It's kind of you don't have to have seen the movies, but it helped a little bit. Now with World of Krypton, is this something that you wrote that somebody could go in absolutely cold and know nothing about Kal-El or Krypton or Superman and still enjoy this book? Did you write it with that intent?
Yeah, I believe so. Like, if you didn't know anything about those things, you're just going to kind of get a story of intrigue about a science fiction society, and there's family dynamics there in the sense of a, politics almost, the visuals are amazing. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know who Jor-El is, and that's kind of the challenge of this series, because when you look at something like Rogue One, right, which I enjoyed immensely. I thought it was a great movie. Rogue One built out an entire storyline from this one sentence that was uttered in one movie, right? You don't know who Jyn Erso is, or any of these characters, or any of the specific events. You just know one line, that they all died getting these plans, right? That's not the thing with World of Krypton. You know who Jor-El is. You know who Lara is. You know who General Zod is. Like, intimately who they are. So it's a bigger challenge, because you're trying to build a story that can surprise people while also not, violating their understandings of these characters and staying true to those things, but also not feeling like a retread. You know what I mean? So it really is a challenge. It's not like any story that I've done before, and that's kind of what appealed to me about it. I always try to do a story that's going to challenge me in some way and get me outside my comfort zone. So even if I fail, that's how you grow as a writer. I could stay in the same thing and just swing the same golf club all day, every day, but I'm not going to learn how to swing any other golf clubs that way. You know what I mean? So I hate golf, by the way. I don't
but that was a great analogy.
Yeah. But you Florida guy from West Palm, you know what I'm saying? I figured maybe you got the golf in you, you know what I mean? But so yeah, it's a challenge, and again, you might fail, but at least that's how I'm growing as a writer.
So you mentioned earlier on how, like, it's cool to write Jor-El, but it's definitely not somebody that people aren't aware of. But then you also got to mention that you get to write Lara a little bit, and while people kind of know who she is, she doesn't very much get a lot of panel time in comics or anything else. What was it like for you? Like, did you want to change that a little bit, or did you still end up wanting to focus on Jor-El? Because I see that she's in it a bit in the first issue.
Yeah, no, she definitely is a character that runs throughout the whole series. Allura also, Kara's mother, she's a character that we'll see throughout the series. The series really is, though, anchored with Jor-El and Zod. And, they start out in this first issue as the best of friends, and their two houses, the House of El and the House of Zod, go back and have an alliance and close bonds, to Krypton's beginnings. But as their relationship, everybody knows that Zod and Jor-El become enemies. Like, this is, again, the sun is baking the cake. We all know this. But as we see their friendship deteriorate, and as their friendship deteriorates, Krypton is deteriorating around them. You know what I'm saying? So it's we all know what's going to happen to Krypton, but there's a story wrapped within that I don't feel like we've seen before, and that's really where the story kind of hangs.
And it feels to me a little bit like I don't want to say the focus is family, but it's very much a family kind of centric story, at least to start, because you're doing, obviously we get to see baby Kara, and then there's going to be a baby Kal-El, but like, we're kind of focusing on the parents, again, people who we don't get to see once these people make it to Earth. But it does feel like it's a family centric story, almost like coming of age, if for lack of a better term. Is that kind of what you aimed for with this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, we won't see, Superman. Like I don't want to do the ship leaving and Krypton exploding and all those kinds of things. You know what I'm trying to say? Because we've definitely seen that plenty of times. I thought it would be interesting to pursue that concept of a child growing up in a deteriorating world to sort of pursue that with Kara instead, because
Okay.
she's somebody who lived to be a much older age when Krypton is destroyed.
Yeah.
So we will see some of that, but I think that family is just really how you ground. It's hard to wrap your head around, and even for us, today, it's hard to wrap your head around as a person, knocking out your 9 to 5 job. It's hard to wrap your head around elements happening on a global scale. You know what I mean? That involve thousands of years of planetary processes or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And so that's very much what Krypton goes through, as we all know. And so it's grounding that in family, and how do the different parts of society grapple with that? How does Jor-El grapple with that? How does Zor-El and Allura, as new parents of an infant, grapple with that in a way that when we enter the story, Jor-El and Lara do not have children. So, how does it affect different people, and how do we ground it in those ideas that everybody can relate to?
Nice. So here, as we got a couple minutes left on the show, the series, I love when I don't have to ask because it's right there. 6-issue limited series. But tell the people kind of without spoiling anything, what they can expect throughout the ride of the 6 issues. And it seems to me like they're gonna get to see Kara grow up a little bit too before this all deteriorates and everything like that.
There will be elements of that. Yeah, it's set. Each issue kind of jumps forward in time. Okay. So we're not. We opened the series with the first issue with this sort of environmental event in the natural world that leads one of the doctors who's on the Science Council, which is a new character, to start to wonder what exactly is going on with the planet, and then she talks to Jor-El, and that kind of sets that path in motion. So each issue will advance forward in time. So we see the passage of time to where is society at now, where are they at in the next issue, where are they at in the next issue, leading up to, when everybody realizes that it's past the point of no return. And maybe we had a chance to fix it, but that chance is gone now. And how we get there and the reasons why we get there are hopefully things that people won't expect and will surprise them. But, you are going to get to see, sort of a 15-year span of time in these 6 issues, which is also interesting because I haven't done a story like that before as well. Story arcs that I do tend to be set, all within the same few days, not across years like this. So
now, is that a challenge at all to write it kind of like that, where the passage of time, heck, and even one issue might be a couple of years and months and things like that? Is that a little bit more challenging as a writer?
It's interesting to do. Yeah, I had done it before. Again, I'm working with some advantages in the sense that everybody knows what happens to Krypton and who these characters are. So it allows you to jump in a way where people will still not feel like they're lost, I think, Okay. But yeah, no, it is a different sort of structure, like where you're finding your entry points, where you're beginning your issues and where you're ending your issues. There are 2 that kind of happen right after each other. And in a traditional comic, you'll end with the cliffhanger and the next issue picks up at that same moment. Well, that's not really what we're doing here. Like this first issue is a self-contained event, and then the next issue opens up 2 years later. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of tell the complete story within that one issue while also making it a chapter of a 6-issue miniseries that is its own complete story. So structurally, it's a bit more of a challenge to work with, but it's been fun to do.
Nice. I can't wait. The book technically is officially on sale today because DC's street date is on Tuesdays, but I can't wait to get this in people's hands because, as you mentioned, everybody kind of knows what happens to Krypton, and I'm a big DC fan. I've watched Supergirl, Man of Steel, everything you can think of, and the destruction of Krypton is usually a 2-second, flashback, and you're over with it. So it's cool that we're going to get 6 issues to give us that backstory, to give us a lot more things to kind of fill in the gaps of what we know happened to Krypton. That's the way I think I'm going to view it, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, and also filling in those gaps of how did General Zod end up the way he is? Jor-El, all those kinds of things, fill in some of those gaps too.
Yep. So so Joe actually said earlier, he said, Superman is what we all hope to aspire to be. And I do kind of feel like that's why people think he's the Boy Scout. But it's literally just us as good people hope to be just a little bit like Superman, I think.
You're my Superman, Joe. I don't know if I've told you that before, but that's what I feel. So.
And then Joe comes in, hold on, wait, what happened to Krypton? Well, Joe, I already have one of these in your box. So in 5 months, you will find out. But Rob, thank you so much for your time, man. Where can people find you on social media? Are you on? I know you're on Twitter. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm just at Robert Venditti on both Twitter and Instagram. Not on Facebook. So those are the two places you can find me.
Perfect. And Joe says, "Aw, shucks." But thank you so much, Robert, for your time, man. Like I said, now that I know you're actually right over there, heck, we had Joe Pruitt from Atlanta over a couple months ago. So
cool. Yeah.
We have the airline miles, we have the hotel points. Maybe we'll see if we can get you down here sometime.
Yeah, I always love coming to Orlando. So anytime.
So, well, thank you so much for your time, Rob. Best of luck with the 2 series, Superman in 78 and World of Krypton here. Number 1 is out this week, man. I hope you get amazing sales. I hope we're going to a second print before we know it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the series, and I hope your readers and your customers enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Rob. You have a good rest of your day, man. Take it easy.
You too. Take care.
So thank you so much to my guest, Robert Venditti from DC, writer of Green Lantern, Superman 78. And this week, World of Krypton number 1. We have the A cover, $3.99. We have the variant cover, $4.99. I love that cover. And then we also have the 1 in 25 incentive variant. I have them at $24.99. I have 2 of these. So again, pick up the book if you guys have liked Rob's work from Green Lantern, Superman 78. If you've done Superman 78, you've got to pick this up. But again, Robert Venditti, great writer. Florida boy, Orlando boy, went to UCF. So give it a read, guys. I'll have it here in the store. And Max will be back tomorrow for his auction. I think Brenna and Max and Evan will be running it because Zoe will be back home. So take it easy, everybody. Thank you again to our guest, Robert Venditti. And I will see you guys. This mouse just died on me. So I will see you guys in a week. Take it easy and have a good one.